Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis and initiative of the UPSConline.com and Ambition IAS. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 4th of January 2018. So coming to the first article. This is an article on the editorial page of the Hindu. It is read as Towards a Genomics Revolution. The opinion is that India has the scientific resources for genetic research. All it needs is the vision at the national level to leverage them. Now, before I begin the discussion, I would like to mention that this is a very specific article. It is specifically focused on genomics. Now, the scope is limited. It can come directly. There's a rare possibility that a direct question on genomics can come in the mains paper, but a general utility does exist in discussing the science and technology potentials of India, arenas of science and technology. So that is where this article has some relevance. So that's about some basis about this article. So let's start with the background first. In the background, you have to understand certain terms that have been used. These are scientific terminology that has been used in this editorial. So what is genome? A genome is a complete set of an organism's DNA, including all its genes. So if it is a human genome, in that case, all the DNA, all the genes of the human beings will constitute the human genome. So that is what we understand by the term genome. Now, what do you understand by genomics? Genomics is the field of science which is focusing on the structure, function, evolution, mapping and editing of genomes. So it is a utilization of the genomes. That is what genomics is. Having said that, I want to give you a brief history. Previously, when Watson and Crick discovered the DNA, the model of the DNA, it was known to scientists at that point of time that the DNA is the basic hereditary chain of individuals, and it is on this DNA that something called genes exist, and it is these genes which are transmitted from one generation to the other. Further, studies developed, and by 2001 they started a project known as the Human Genome Project. This is important, the 2001 Human Genome Project. This project aimed at making a repository of all the genes that human beings had, and today this project has developed much more, and every human being today can get his or her genome done by a private enterprise, and that too at a very low cost. So genome studies and genomics is something that has developed a lot since the time when the model of DNA was discovered. So that is the background of this editorial. The key idea here is that genomics can be used as a tool in medicine, and it can be genomics informed medicine is something that India should aim at. That is the key idea. Now, what do you understand by a genomics informed medicine? For instance, at the present times, what happens is, if a patient of maybe a heart disease or a liver disease, any such patient is coming to the hospitals, he is being administered with a general treatment which is common for all the patients. However, the study of genomics opens a specific arena under medical science where treatment shall be given to a patient depending upon his genome. So that is the idea behind genomics revolution. Also, by studying the genome of an individual, it can be analyzed whether or not a particular person is prone to a disease. So such kind of preventive measures can be adopted. So that is the entire utility of genomics in health system. So that is what the editorial is largely focusing on. Now, coming to some good points that have been raised in the editorial specific to the Indian context is that India has a vast genetic diversity. Therefore, there is a greater scope for studying the human genome in India. This vast diversity in India is rather even sustained because of caste-based endogamy, which has resulted in the fact that traditionally the diversity that was there in the country has maintained and not been much diluted. Another thing is that genetic studies will help reduce the disease burden in future generations, and India, with its population burden, is going to face severe health challenges in the future. Many studies are being done on this. health infrastructure in India is something that is one of the core concerns and will be much more so in the future. So that is one issue. And if genomics is encouraged in India, then the disease burden can be reduced. Like I had mentioned before, that it can act as a preventive tool. So that is one idea. Also, it can identify genetic risks in the Indian population in general. Also, the research in this field can be useful to humanity worldwide, and also India can offer a chance. India can grab a chance to claim a piece of global medical and scientific frontier. Like recently, also in the previous few articles on research and science and technology, questions are being raised that India is not leading the global research programs, which is a major cause of concern for India. So the author is bringing about an analysis that in this particular arena, because of its natural advantages of a diverse pool of population, India can lead the studies in genomics and also aligning genomics with medicine. So that is a good point that the author has brought about. Also, India can leverage its information technology strength into the studies of genomics, which would, make it become bioinformatics. So India can become a champion in bioinformatics is another scope that the editorial is talking about. Then there is a role of genomics in the study of history of populations. So there again, it has some utility, not only in medicine, but also in history. So these are the benefits of genomics in general. And then some suggestions have been given in the editorial. The suggestions are that a coherent push at the national level that involves the government, academic institutions, healthcare industry, IT industry, and the nascent biotechnology industry is what is needed for development of genomics within the country. Also, there is a need for creating Indian genetic data book, which would help, act as a repository of the genome of the entire country. Further, there is a need for training manpower in this regard, not only specific trainees in biotechnology, in genomics, but also doctors to align themselves with genomics-based medicine. Also, it is in keeping with the view of the goal of a healthy nation, which the country is envisaging, that a genomics revolution is much warranted in India. This is the entire crux of this editorial, and its relevance is to be utilized like this in your answers. So that's about this article. Coming to the next article, understanding Bhima Koregaon. Now, the context of this article is a recent unrest in the Bhima Koregaon village in Pune. This is a small village in Pune in Maharashtra. Now, what is the background of this unrest? Why is this unrest happening? So there is a history associated to this village, which is that on the 1st of January 1818, there was a battle known as the Bhima Koregaon battle, in which, it was a battle between the Peshwa army, the Maratha Peshwa army of that time, with the East India Company. Now, the East India Company was represented by some soldiers who belonged to the Mahar community. This is a Dalit community in the region. Now, the battle was won by the East India Company, largely because of the valor of the Mahar soldiers, and the Peshwa at that time, Peshwa Bajirao too, was defeated, and it marked the end of Peshwai in the Maratha kingdom. So this is the background of this battle, and this battle is one, has assumed a legendary status in the Dalit history. It's not seen from the prism of victory of victory against the foreign imperialist country, but rather as a victory of the Mahars against the Peshwas, who were the Brahmins. So it is somehow viewed from that context, and the Dalits still today, the community till today, takes great pride in this battle. Now, this year, the 1st of January 2018 marked the 200th anniversary of this battle. So obviously there were celebrations in this village regarding this battle. This is the cause of contempt, and this is what has resulted in a conflict in the zone. Another thing associated with the village Bhima Koregaon, another thing in the background is that there is another village, Vadhu Budruk village, which is very near to the Bhima Koregaon village. Now, what had happened in this village is that the Vadhu Budruk village is the seat of Sambhaji the eldest son of Shivaji, Sambhaji, he was cremated in this village. Now the legend is that Sambhaji was killed and mutilated by the Mughals. So what had happened is that his mutilated body was collected by a Mahar named as Govind Mahar, and he performed the last rites of Sambhaji. And it is in this respect that Mr. Govind Mahar, who has done this, he is really revered in this village, and he is worshipped in this village. So that is another background to this entire conflict. Now, what are the issues associated in this conflict? The issues are that first and foremost, there is an issue of invoking history in hoisting the Dalit politics to a new level. Using history to channelize Dalit politics in the modern times, whether it is justiciable or not, this is a debate that is ongoing. Also, this is a stark example of polarizing the political landscape on religious and caste lines. This is a major issue. Also, the major point of concern is that the Maratha youth who are facing unemployment and a lack of educational opportunities are now being easily pulled into these conflicts. They are largely vulnerable to these conflicts, and this is being misused by the leaders there. Also, there's an issue of, as to whether these conflicts are something that is spontaneous or were they pre-planned. Considering the fact that this was the 200th anniversary and celebrations were genuinely expected in this region, there are accusations that attacks on the Dalits, where there has been loss of life or one person has been killed, is somehow was pre-planned by political parties. That is what is another accusation. Also, the issue is that of politicization of Dalits against the Hindutva. This is a phenomenon that is being seen in many other states. Also, this was seen in the case of Una violence in Gujarat. In the aftermath of the Una violence in Gujarat, a similar uprising of the Dalits against the Hindutva forces is something that is emerging. So that is what this editorial is all about. This is a good example whenever we have to discuss about intolerance, whenever you have to discuss about politics based on caste and religion. There, this article assumes important. It also assumes important in the case of history as a means of the misuse of history as a means of politicization. That is one scope of this editorial. So this can be used as an example in many cases. Also, how the youth are being misled. So multiple arenas this article can be used. It is important from that point of view. Now coming to the next article, Behind the Enemy Line. Now this article is basically based on the line of control, which is a line between India and Pakistan. It is a military control line between India and Pakistan. Now, if you understand for some background related to the LOC, now LOC is not an actual border. It is merely an ad hoc border because it is an agreement between these two countries. It was first decided upon in 1972 after the Shimla Agreement. Later, after the Kargil War, it was further reiterated that the LOC will mark as the ad hoc agreement between these two countries. So that is the background of LOC. Now, what is the context is that there have been increasing ceasefire violations at the LOC. So that is the entire context of this editorial. The first half of the editorial is largely a narrative of the author here who has visited the other side of the LOC in Pakistan. So that is not important for you. The basic issues that are important, I shall be limiting my discussion to those particular issues only. First and foremost, there is a rampant use of high caliber weapons, example mortars and artillery, across the LOC, and this has largely led to impacting the civilians living in the border areas, leading to high civilian deaths. So a primary concern is that the weaponry that is being used is of very high caliber. Another thing is that another issue related to the border population is that the narratives of death, destruction, and how children are unable to go to schools is something that is a humanitarian aspect of increased ceasefire violations at the LOC, and this is something that the author is raising or flagging off as a major concern at the LOC. Another thing is that more border population is there on the Pakistan side as compared to the Indian side. So the pressure of the local people on the Pakistan army is higher as compared to the pressure on the Indian army. So this is an analysis that the author has drawn. Also, trade in transit is something that is often falling prey to the violations of LOC. Ceasefire violations at the LOC. This is something really which is impacting the border populations. That is the issue here. Also, soldiers who are operating on the LOC are under constant threat, because the confidence of both the countries across the LOC is at its minimal. So the soldiers are under constant threat that they can lose their lives at any time, they can be targeted at any time. So that is one vicious atmosphere that has been created at the LOC. Also, the Pakistan military deployment compared to India is thin at the LOC. Also, the Indian forces enjoy a physical dominance at the LOC. Not only infrastructurally, compared to manpower also, India is dominating Pakistan at the LOC. That is one analysis that the author has given, a ground report he has given. Also, because of comparatively increased border population, less capabilities at the LOC, on the Pakistani side, there is a greater willingness in the Pakistan army to ensure confidence building measures. Also, it will be a greater incentive for Pakistan if greater confidence building measures are established and ceasefire is maintained at the LOC. So that is the opinion that the author has generated. He has given some suggestions in this regard. First and foremost, he suggests that in order to decrease casualties of civilians, there is a need to lower the caliber of violations and the caliber of the artillery that is being used at the LOC. He has suggested that this can be done by withdrawing heavy artillery to 50 km behind the zero line. So this is a suggestion which you can use if opportunity is provided. Also, the Director Generals of Military Operations could consider holding regular meetings. Therefore, this will result in increased communication and less misunderstanding between the two armies. Past experience also shows that whenever communications between the two the Director Generals is more, in that cases, the ceasefire violations also reduce. So that is a good suggestion that the author has brought about. He has given an opinion in this regard where he says that the confidence building measures are much needed in the background of the modern context where 30 soldiers have lost their lives, 30 Indian soldiers have lost their lives, and there have been 900 violations in the last year itself. So the problem is definitely a festering one, and these suggestions must be looked into. So this is a good analysis that the editorial brings about. Now coming to the next article, a new plateau. This is an article basically in the context of the India-China relations. The context is of the India-China relations in the year 2017, which the author says has been a watershed year or a largely critical year in the India-China relations. Now, why has this been an important year? Because some issues specifically to this year have emerged. First and foremost, India in 2017 has taken a strong stance against the Belt and Road Initiative of China, which was in the aftermath of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So that is one thing new that happened in 2017. Also, China has been tightening its grip in South Asia. How some examples have been given for this. Firstly, there has been a left alliance government in Nepal, and the Prime Minister to be Mr. KP Oli has had a warmer relation with China compared to India. Many a times he has accused India in the past, of intrusion into Nepali affairs. Even during the economic blockade, he criticized India. So the relationship with Mr. KP Oli, the relationship that New Delhi has with the now government of Nepal is not a very warm one. So that is one issue. Another thing is that of a free trade agreement which was recently signed between China and Maldives. Also, the China-Pakistan relationship are day by day improving. They are, they are reaching newer heights. So that is another major concern. Also, there was the Doklam standoff in 2017 marked a new low between the India-China relations. That is one analysis that has been drawn. Now, India in 2017 has openly associated with the Quad, which is a quadrilateral group of, India, Australia, the US, and Japan, and the Quad has been categorically criticized by China. So India has been taking very explicit stance against China. That is something that is new in 2017. Also, India is focusing more on ASEAN and its Act East policy. So those are certain irritants in the India-China relations. Now, some opinion that the author has given is that India is faced with a challenge of a rising superpower in its vicinity, and this is definitely a reality today. Further, he says that both India and China have brought about certain changes in their policies. First is that where China has adopted a much more assertive stand than before, India too has, refused to cede any more ground to China. This is important because both countries are now assuming different positions. They are assuming more, explicit stands against each other. So that is why the year 2017 is of critical importance in the analysis of India-China relations. This is what is the crux of this editorial. Now, coming to the next article, Money Talks. The opinion is that Pakistan is worried less by US withdrawal of aid than the overall downslide in ties. Now, the context of the article is that of the US withholding Pakistan's aid, also the recent President Trump's tweet, which has accused Pakistan of lies and deceit. So that is the context of this article. Now, there are some important issues that have been brought about in the editorial regarding this context. First is that in the aftermath of US withholding its aid to Pakistan, China has stepped up its grants to Pakistan, which we have seen in the backdrop of this China-Pakistan economic corridor, where the grants of $100 billion has been committed by China for infrastructure development in Pakistan. So that is one issue that has been brought about. Also, another issue is that of Pakistan's downslide in relationship with the US. This is the primary concern to Pakistan rather than withholding of the aid which the US was giving to Pakistan. Also, there is a threat in Pakistan, that there's a fear in Pakistan that US may cancel Pakistan's major non-NATO ally status. That is one fear. Also, for India, it is a positive and a welcome step. Definitely, any acknowledgement of terrorism emanating from Pakistan is something that India welcomes. But certain caution has been advocated in this editorial, where India has, the author here has suggested that the focus of US in criticizing Pakistan is specific to the terror groups who are active in Afghanistan and attacking the US troops in Afghanistan, rather than any mention of the terror groups who are attacking India. So it is not a very explicit criticism of terrorism specific to India. So that is one concern. Also, there is definitely a sentiment across the world in the post-Trump America, where there is a no commitment and there is a shaky policy which is being viewed in the case of US. So that is one concern that does exist. A stability in the policies of President Trump is something that is missing globally. So that is one issue of concern. Also, the author has given an opinion that India should avoid getting somehow triangulated in the equation between Washington and Islamabad. So that is, those are the, these are the basic issues that have been brought about in the editorial. So coming to the next editorial, citizen count. This is an important topic. It is based on the context of the National Register of Citizens in Assam. And the first draft, the context is that the first draft of this National Register of Citizens has been issued. Now, coming to the background of this topic, and what is this NRC? Now, firstly, you have to understand that the issue of foreigners in Assam is something that is, considerably old. It is a major political issue in Assam because there is a rising number of immigrants in Assam who have somehow, acquired citizenship, or if not citizen, fake certificates, duplication of certificates, and this is diluting the core population. This is laying stress on the scarce resources in Assam. Also, it has a political aspect because the old population of Assam is being dominated by these immigrants in elections. That is another issue. So the problem is somehow an old one, and also at many points this problem has become violent in Assam. So in this regard, there was an agitation that took place in Assam, and this culminated in something called an Assam Accord in the year 1985 between the agitators in sorry, this was the Assam Accord between the agitating groups of Assam and the then Rajiv Gandhi government. In 1985, they signed an accord known as the Assam Accord, and this accord set a cutoff date of 25th of March 1971. So it was decided that those who had entered India before this date, only those people will be given the citizenship status in India, and all those people who are entering India after this date will be deported back, and they shall be considered as refugees. So this is what the accord had decided. However, even in the aftermath of this accord, the problem of leaky borders with Bangladesh continued to be a problem, and a large number of immigrants kept on entering the territory of Assam. So and this was somehow overlooked by the successive governments for political reasons. So this is the entire background and the contentious issue relating to Assam. Now, what are the some issues relating to the NRC? The issues are that first and foremost, this is a Herculean task of verifying the certificates of so many people. So it is a Herculean task for the government. Even recently, the government had asked for an extension, but the Supreme Court denied one, and the NRC is being monitored by the Supreme Court now. Also, another issue is that of maintaining law and order in the aftermath of the NRC drafts. Not only the first draft has come, but it has resulted in a great deal of restlessness amongst the people of Assam, because many people are not finding their names in the first draft. So the government is assuring them that definitely more drafts are to come, but after the entire process is culminated, there is a chance that some people's name will not be included in these drafts. So in that scenario, there is a fear that it can lead to some law and order issues in the state. Another thing is that the border crossing in Assam and West Bengal is a major problem, and it has been continuously ignored, like I mentioned before. So focus should be on plugging this problem rather than going into the political aspects of this issue. Another thing is that of humanitarian concerns over those who cannot claim citizenship. Now, considering the fact that this is the cutoff date, if a person had come to India after this date and today he shall not be able to prove his citizenship, in such a scenario, this person would have spent most of his life in India, and probably he would not have known any other place other than India as his homeland. So there is a humanitarian angle as to if the modern laws now will ask him to leave India if he will be deported. So definitely some humanitarian concerns are there in this regard. Also, there is no deportation treaty with Bangladesh as of now. So the future of these people who will be declared as aliens within the state of Assam is something that is questionable. Another major issue is that of the Citizenship Amendment Bill, which the government has proposed. Now, this bill aims at making the Hindu illegal immigrants and those from other minority communities in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan eligible for Indian citizenship. Now, the issue is that this is considered to be a religiously discriminating bill because only preference is being given to a particular religion, in this case Hinduism, and the dominant religion, which is the Muslims in these states of Assam and West Bengal, who are the major immigrants, are feeling cheated, are feeling left out. So there are many objections to this bill at present. It is a very political issue. So that is another aspect that has been brought about. Now, in this regard, an opinion has been given by the author in this editorial, which is what I would stress upon. The author is saying that stress should be laid upon sealing the India-Bangladesh border and explore possibilities of provisions such as transparent work permits for foreigners, rather than push for contentious legislations like the Citizenship Amendment Bill. So this is about the Assam Accord and the National Register of Citizens. And it's definitely more developments in this regard will come as more and more drafts will be released by the government. So this is what you need to know about this piece of news. Coming to the next article. This is a small article, but because it is in continuation of the various discussions we've had before on the Financial Resolution and Deposit Insurance Bill and the bail-in clause under this bill. So this is an article which has the government stand and how the government has given its explanation and clarifications over this bill. So those issues are there. So the first clarification that the government has given is that it will not be a random process, but rather it will happen through a resolution corporation. So it is envisaging a body which will be known as a resolution corporation to in any case implement the bail-in clause. Further, deposits up to 1 lakh rupees are considered as insured, and it will be these deposits which shall not be touched. Only the uninsured part of the deposits will be considered for the bail-in clause, and the resolution corporation shall have the power to extend even this limit if it considers appropriate. Also, the bail-in clause will not be used for the public sector banks. So only this will be a clause which will be limited to the private banks, as the public sector banks shall be protected from this clause, and the public sector banks will be bailed out by the government. Also, there is a provision for prior consent of depositors for cancellation of the liability beyond the insured amount. So it will not be a random process, rather a prior consent is envisaged. Therefore, the crux is that it is limited. This bail-in clause will be limited only for private banks, and that too if depositors allow it. A bail-in clause is subject to government scrutiny and also the parliamentary oversight is another explanation given in this regard. Also, this resolution corporation will ensure that the depositors get back at least as much money as they would if the bank had been liquidated. So these safeguards are existing in the bill. Also, the bail-in clause, the government has claimed that the bail-in clause has largely been misrepresented and there is misinformation regarding this bill. So it has cleared some air. So these points are important in this regard. This was a mere continuation. The editorial has been discussed. The various editorials on the FRDI bill have been discussed in previous discussions. So details are in those discussions. So some piece of information. We are starting a UPSC prelims cum mains classes from the 6th of January 2018 at 10 a.m. We shall be covering all the basics, which will include the NCERT's daily newspaper, prelims test series, and mains answer writing on a daily basis. So if you're interested, please contact us. Please spread the word to your friends. These are our contact details. This is our address, and this is our phone number. So with this, I finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching this video, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.